distracted by the noise of the hospital cafeteria. It takes me a moment to realize that the beeping noise I hear is coming from my pager, which for those of you who don't know what a pager is, it kind of looks like this. It's like a cell phone, but doesn't make calls, and you can only receive numbers. That's complicated. So I look down at the scrolling numbers across the tiny screen. Seeing it's a call from the ICU, I set down my half-finished plate of food and ready myself to be present, to show up for someone, a family in need. Thoughts swirl in my mind as I approach the elevator. I had visited the ICU many times, but this was my first day on call as a chaplain, and this was my first time that I had been paged. To arrive, to be fully present without knowing what I was walking into. The elevator opens and I get buzzed through. Room 214, the nurse says. And I approach 214 and I take a deep breath. I knock on the door. Inside the room, I see a family gathering around their loved one. They all stop talking and look up at me. Thank God, the doctor is here, the daughter says, and they wait for me to speak. No, the mother says, it's not the doctor, it's the father. Which is a true story. But in reality, I was not yet an actual father at this point, so I was pretty confused until I realized that they meant the father, the priest. So I explained, I'm a rabbi. And while the family took a moment to work through their own confusion, to accept that their comfort that day would come from a person of a different faith, they truly allowed me to share this vulnerable, sacred, and liminal space. I was called to the moment and showed up, and I was present with them. And despite the doubt I felt, the inner voice questioning whether I had what it took to help in someone else's moment of pain, a feeling surely familiar to any one of us here today, I trusted that whatever I could offer, showing up as my authentic self, would be enough. See, we're asked to show up all the time, to walk the dog in the morning, to make breakfast for our children, to respond to the next text message or phone call, the next tweet or post. We show up to work or to a racket or card game. We show up for parent-teacher conferences and for youth sports. We show up to volunteer. We show up for JLC, for services, Shiva, a class. We show up all the time because we believe we need to or believe we should. We might even have a real reason to be there. Yet sometimes we show up for the day's event or obligation completely distracted by the thoughts of what happened before we arrived, or something troubling our family, some new bit of information we are processing, the next task at hand. We may even be looking at our phones the entire time. How many of us are here now, in person or virtually, because we think we're supposed to be here? Or maybe just to see about that new rabbi. If that's the case, I'm glad you're here. But are these the ways that we really show up? At a time when we're pulled in so many different directions, having possibly felt distant for many months, years even, of being apart, or perhaps like my family being new here, how might we fully show up for each other, for our families, for our BJBE community in growth, connection, and presence in the year ahead? 8 times in the Torah do we read the Hebrew word Hineni, here I am. Our ancestors' response to God's call of Ayeka, where are you? This morning we read the word Hineni 3 times. God speaks to Abraham and tells him to take his son Isaac to the mountain as a sacrifice. Then Isaac, seeing the preparations for an offering, asks his father, where is the ram? And finally, Finally, an angel of God calls out to Abraham at the peak moment of this narrative, creating a pause, allowing space for Abraham to notice the ram in the thicket. In each of these moments, Abraham responds to the call to show up, Hineni, here I am. And each response becomes increasingly important as each moment demands deeper attention and care. In these moments, this affirming word helps Abraham to tune in, to truly show up to what is happening all around him. So what if we decided that once we make the choice to be somewhere, that we actually allow ourselves to be fully in it? What if we live in a way that when someone says, Ayeka, where are you? Are you here? That we can truly respond, Hineni, I am right here. But what's the point? Why bother showing up? We are busy, we are tired, we are jaded by the discourse in our society. We might not be sure what religion has to offer us. We might be feeling disengaged or depleted from the last few years. Many of us are living in an experience of ongoing trauma, anxiety, or despair after the events on July 4th in Highland Park. After illness from COVID or other conditions, after tragedies in our community and elsewhere. The intensity of these feelings can be too much at times. We might get stuck in overwhelming thoughts of post-pandemic mental health, of racial injustice, climate change, reproductive rights, anti-Semitism, and the list goes on. The magnitude of the work needed to move forward could feel like a barrier for showing up. It could be easier simply to not show up at all. In the Talmud, there's an extraordinary comment from Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel about the state of the world. Rabbi Gamliel says that from the day the temple was destroyed, there is no day that does not include some form of curse, and that each and every day is more cursed than the previous one. They say that in the morning we will wish it to be evening, in the evening we will wish it to be morning. And this text caught my attention because the rabbis also feared this moment, saying, if everything is deteriorating, why does the world continue to exist? And they answer this question, akdusha, by making things kodesh, by making things holy. They teach us that the world continues to exist for the purpose of holiness, that this world is here so that we can bring more holiness into it. And we make life holy when we show up, when we engage with what is in front of us. I recently learned the term infinite browsing from civic advocate Pete Davis, who wrote a fascinating book called Dedicated, in which he explores how many options we have in this world. That we live in a hallway of doors and choices, and sometimes we get stuck in the infinite possibilities that either everything is diluted or we simply don't make a choice. Davis recognizes that the word dedicate has two meanings. First, it means to make something holy, like to dedicate a memorial. But it also means to stick with something for a long time, as in she was dedicated to the project. I don't think this is a coincidence, he says. We're doing something holy when we choose to commit to something. And we make ourselves holy when we dedicate ourselves to something and we show up for it. What if our community could be the answer to the despair in the world? The answer to how we learn to fully show up in the year ahead? What if showing up and saying Hineni is the reason the world exists? For us to be in community together, for us to learn and grow, to live our lives together and be in relationship with one another. Acting together to bend the moral arc of the universe a little bit more towards justice. This is why we are here at this moment right now. The synagogue, BJBE, has never been more needed or more important than it is right now, for ourselves individually and for the world. Being here now is how we bring holiness into our world. Being here now is how we make our community sacred and holy. And this is an extraordinary moment in time, not just because our community is amidst an incredible opportunity of transition, but because our world has never seen a moment just like this. So how will we show up to it and make it holy? I've already seen this showing up, this being fully present in the last few months since I arrived here at BJBE. I saw this on the evening of July 4th on Zoom, when 200 Zoom boxes were filled with compassionate congregants who held each other up. I saw this on a morning when 350 lunches were packed in a full kitchen just on the other side of those doors for Project Nourish, bringing food to people who are most food insecure. I saw this at Kol Shabbat on Saturday morning and in a vibrant Torah study, when I heard the voices of members of our community joining in prayer and sharing their personal stories of Torah. I saw this on the first morning of JLC a couple of weeks ago, when hundreds of students and their parents filled our sanctuary, actively present and participating in song and trivia and making meaningful connections. And today, we will all get a chance to see and experience many other ways of showing up for our community this year. Along the windows in the village center are the words Hineni, already filled with meaningful statements written by members of our community, both young and old. The statements written on each sticker are really extraordinary. They are personal and communal, simple and complex, and all make a real impact in our community. Here are just some of the different ways our community has already said Hineni. To be helpful to our community as much as possible, to lift others up, to celebrate new life with a baby naming, to make new members feel welcome, to practice patience and tolerance, to read from the Torah for the first time, and to read from the Torah for the first time in a long time, to join our junior choir and to be a prayer leader, to become involved in Tikkun Olam initiatives and to help those less fortunate, to find ways to connect to the land and people of Israel, to learn more names and meet new people at the temple, to eat more matzo ball soup, to learn to speak with others, to others with whom I disagree, to find calm, to cultivate belonging, to be a source of support, to show children that mitzvot are important, to love and listen with empathy, to check in with a friend I haven't spoken to in a while, to learn mahjong and bake challah, to park in the lot instead of using the JLC car line so that I can meet somebody new, to simply make a choice to walk through the front doors. So if you haven't already, I invite you to participate in this project. You'll see stations in our village center when you leave. By adding your own voice, your own declaration of Hineni, your own statement of showing up will be displayed along with all those that you see now. And this fall, there will be many new ways to show up and be present here at BJBE. After Yom Kippur, we'll be launching over 50 classes that can be attended at your own pace, virtually or in person. You'll find easier access to participate in Tikkun Olam initiatives and read impactful stories about the ways others have shown up here. In the spring, we'll celebrate Israel at 75, and in the next year, we will be planning a family trip there. And when you attend Shabbat services, you'll notice exciting and innovative ways to experience prayer and a renewed commitment to ensuring young families and families of all kinds feel welcome. And perhaps most exciting are the ways we will show up for each other that haven't yet been identified. The additional impactful ideas you will share with me and other members of our team in the weeks ahead. And if you're not sure what that might be for you, just bring yourself and we'll be here. I am so excited to share these Hineni moments with each of you. And I can't think of a better way to meet you than by showing up together. The world turns at over 1,000 miles per hour. And if I think about it too much, I get dizzy. The idea that the world moves fast is not a figure of speech, but a literal matter of fact. The High Holy Day Machzor teaches that in these days, this is our hour of change. We can choose to fall backwards, to stay stuck in a time when we are distracted or disconnected. Or we can choose to move forward, to show up for each other and for our community, to make life holy together, to say Hineni. And so we pause here in this hour to decide how we will enter the gates in the year ahead. Will we passively let ourselves be carried through? Or will we take a deep breath, as I did before I entered that hospital room, and knock on the door, and walk in with readiness to actively show up for ourselves and each other? I have chosen this path to show up here, saying Hineni. So here I am, ready to lead and support you as we walk life's journey together and shape the future of this sacred community. The Hebrew word for Hineni is spoken in the singular form. But there is no single person who bears the weight of this path. This moment demands Hinenu, that we say Hineni in the plural as community. In the year ahead, may we all show up together. Because if not now, when? Shana Tova.
If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. We may never see this moment or place and time again. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. We may never see this moment or place and time again. If not now, tell me when. I see sorrow and trouble in this land. I see sorrow and trouble in this land. Although there will be struggle, we'll make the change we can. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. We may never see this moment or place and time again. If not now, tell will take a change of heart for this to mend. But miracles do happen every shining now and then. If not now, tell me when. But miracles do happen every shining now and then. If not now, tell me